All right, so I hate being a broken record, but apparently I have to keep reminding you time and time and time again that all landlords are parasites. Uh, that's your landlord, the cool landlords, the fun landlords, the landlords who give you a break here and there. Your parents renting out their basement or their guest house, or even you, if you are a landlord, you too are a parasite. Um, Landlords add nothing. They are just a step in the process that exists to extract wealth from the working class. They provide nothing. If there were no landlords, homes would be cheaper. If there were no landlords, people would not be spending an endless amount of money grinding and working so that they can just fork over what little money they get as a result of their labor. Um, Landlords provide nothing. And now that the CARES Act has expired, and Congress and Senate, they can't get their shit together to get another pandemic relief bill passed. It looks like if I don't remind you again that all landlords are parasites, that landlords themselves are going to be reminding you just what a bunch of parasites they are. So let's take a look at how landlords and markets are reacting to the end of the federal moratorium. Let's see what's going on. Oh, landlords are actually sending out eviction letters with laughing emojis. Guess who's moving? You. Ha ha. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, it's hilarious. I think it's a great joke that you are going to be living on a sidewalk. Oh, it's good shit. Ooh, I crack myself up with my eviction letters, let me tell you. That's right, eviction has been filed and additional fees have been added. Because, people who can't pay their rent, the first thing you should do is evict them and then add fees. Do I have to remind you all that we have Depression era unemployment levels, that there are literally tens of millions of jobs that have now disappeared that are not going to come back, even if the economy fully reopened and COVID vanished? You can't just take 30 million people and dump them out onto the street. Oh, well, I guess if you're capitalism, you can. Let's take a look. Let's see just how bad it is. 1/3 of American renters expected to miss their August payment. The nation is stretched to the brink by the financial toll of the pandemic. Renters across America wading into unknown territory. Recent survey reveals the breadth of financial uncertainty now plaguing Americans. 27% of adults in the U.S. missed their rent or mortgage payment for July, according to a nationwide survey conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau. But no, people in the house, they can't get their shit together. They're busy, arguing over how much of a break there should be in, payroll taxes and how many more billions of your dollars can be given away to corporations who are still firing people and still giving CEOs, massive payouts. But no, don't worry about the whole rent thing. Pish posh. Among renters alone, just over 1/3 said during the waning days of July they had little to no confidence they could make their August rent payment, a stark measure of the ongoing economic devastation. Survey registers the deepest uncertainty across the South, where in some states, more than 1/3 of renters and homeowners say they missed their last rent or mortgage payment and would struggle to meet their obligations for August. In Texas, 39% of renters said they weren't certain they could pay their rent, or were sure they couldn't. In Oklahoma, that rate is up to 43%. This here is a handy-dandy little graph done with pretty colors that shows you the percentage of people who are on the verge of becoming homeless, losing all their belongings, and every shred of dignity and success that they've managed to scrape together through life living under a capitalist system. But that's what happens. Pandemic comes, government closes down your business for a few months, I guess you just didn't pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you deserve to live under a bridge overpass. Yeah, that totally makes sense here in the capitalist states of America. Now, in some states, they're trying to advance state level moratoriums on eviction. It's worth noting Ralph Northam in Virginia actually had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get his eviction moratorium held up. So they have an eviction moratorium through September 7th. I believe I saw Cuomo was putting something through in New York, like another 90-day eviction package. So in some states, there are some politicians who understand that if you take 1/3 of all the people in your state and you kick them out onto the street, that what little economy you have left will just wither and die. So the news is pretty much it's across the board with this. A wave of evictions expected as moratoriums end in many states. Let's see. Nearly 24% of Harris County evictions were illegal. Now, this comes out of Houston. Even though there are moratoriums in place, landlords are still sending out eviction letters, getting notifications run through the courts, and then getting sheriffs to post eviction notices, even, defying both state and federal bans. And, judges just keep taking the evictions and just pushing them right through, regardless of whether or not it's legal. Because, once you kick somebody out of their house, you send the sheriff there and they come and they kick you out and they take all your shit and they throw it out on the front lawn. And, and then they change the locks on the door. Well, shit, possession's 9/10 of the law. You're already homeless. You already couldn't afford to pay, your rent or your mortgage. There's a good chance you're not going to be able to afford a lawyer and fight this in court. So, buck it. We're just going to take your house anyway. Yeah, good to know. Let's see. After months-long respite, evictions return to New Orleans. Yes, this is what it looks like when you get evicted. Sometimes the eviction proceeding takes less than an hour. A sheriff comes, they hand you the eviction writ or they put it on the front door, and then they can literally just open the front door and start taking your stuff and throwing it out onto the front lawn. If you've ever watched an HGTV show where they flip a home, usually the beginning of that is right after they buy the home and they come with a mob of guys in a big ass dumpster and they go and it takes about an hour and they clear every last thing out of the house. That's what happens with you. Only there is no happy ending where an HGTV host, shows you your beautiful new house. You just sit on the sidewalk because that's where you live now. America is headed for an unprecedented wave of evictions. The disappearance of renter protections imposed in the wake of the pandemic will almost certainly lead to the worst housing crisis in a generation. This is easily going to beat the 2008 numbers because the 2008 numbers primarily just hit people who held mortgages, regardless of whether it was one or multiple. Yes, there were a whole bunch of renters who got caught up in that, but now we're talking about 30, 40 million people being unemployed and jobs being vanished. So it's not like, there's a magical unicorn that's going to come out of the forest behind you and fucking save you. If you're 5 months down on your rent right now, you owe a landlord $10,000. The moratorium just ended and, the unemployment you were getting just ended. That's it. You're done. You are done. Like, you're living in a shelter, you're living under a bridge, you're living in your car, you're living on a sidewalk. That's it. Because the federal government, once again, has opted to just abdicate all responsibility. States will deal with it. It's Friday, we can't agree on cutting the payroll tax for corporations, so we're just all going to go home. By the way, when members of Congress and the Senate go home, they go home to beautiful ass bougie houses. They're not worried about their mortgage. They're not worried about their rent. They're all good. They make about anywhere from $3,500 to $4,000 a week. Yeah, must be nice, right? This is how bad it is. New Jersey landlord demanded sexual favors from low-income tenants for housing aids. This, I would like to say, is the the way out example of just how bad things can get. But no, I hear lots of stories like this all the time. And if you search around on the Googles or on the Go Duck thing or whatever, and you type that shit in, I guarantee you, you will find a mess of articles like this. Because once again, the people who have versus the people who do not have. Not only is it a class or structural issue, there's leverage. There's actual economic pressure on people. Like, if you don't fuck me, you and your child are going to be homeless. That's it. This doesn't get better. It never gets better. Landlord Joseph Santani, who received $100,000 in federal payments each month, threatened to evict tenants who didn't submit to his sexual demands. Not only was this guy threatening people, he was also getting money for it on the side. He didn't even have to squeeze people for rent. No, he just wanted to, use his authority and his power and his leverage to demean and use women who lived in his apartment complex because he is a landlord. He is lord of the land, and he will demand whatever it is he wants from his tenants because he is a landlord. Lord of the land. Isn't that amazing? It's like the prima nocte. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now I'm going to go bang your wife on your wedding night because I'm the lord of the land and I can do that. Also, the federal government's giving me $100,000 a month in federal grants. But I'm still going to do it anyway because I'm a landlord and fuck you. That's why. Well played, Landlord Class. New Jersey landlord who owns multiple buildings and receives about $100,000 a month in federal voucher payments sought sexual favors from low-income tenants in exchange for housing aid. Santani, who owns 18 buildings in or around Elizabeth, New Jersey, just south of Newark, threatened to evict tenants who refused his sexual advances. He's being sued. The lawsuit accuses the landlord of demanding that, quote, tenants provide him with sexual favors, offering to grant tangible housing benefits to tenants in exchange for sexual favors, including oral sex, and exposing his genitals to actual and prospective tenants. There you go. The Landlord Class. Woo! Now that the house is gone and everybody's left for the weekend, Trump, for the better part of a week actually now, has been threatening to just fix all this himself through executive orders. There is actually tape of it.
Democrats have run some very bad states and some very, very bad cities. And a lot of people don't want to give them $1 trillion to reward them for doing a bad job. If you look at some of the states, I won't insult anybody by naming those states, but you know what they are. They want bailout money. They're not interested in the people. They're not interested in unemployment. They're not interested in evictions, which is a big deal, the evictions. They want to evict. A lot of people are going to be evicted. But I'm going to stop it because I'll do it myself if I have to. I have a lot of powers with respect to executive orders, and we're looking at that very seriously right now.
So, number one, apparently evictions are only happening in cities that are run by Democrats. And number two, Trump is going to be their savior. I will remind you here that the only housing moratorium that Donald Trump could possibly try to extend through an executive order is the same one that was passed through the CARES Act. And that is a federal eviction moratorium. And that only covers renters or mortgage holders of properties that are being financed through Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or the FHA. That doesn't affect just normal people renting from normal landlords. The federal moratorium has absolutely nothing to do with that. Now, just a brief reminder, as Donald Trump wants to give lots of speeches about how he's going to come to the rescue of the American people because he's way down in the polls to Joe Biden, and good Lord, that's gotta hurt him inside. Ooh. And he wants to come to your rescue. So here's your reminder that back when Donald Trump was a landlord, he went out of his way to evict everybody. That's right. The guy who wants you to believe he's going to hop on his white horse, pull out his sword and go, charge! And, go mow down the enemy of the evil landlord class. No, Donald Trump is a landlord, and Donald Trump evicted people just to make an extra buck here and there. Donald Trump literally has no fucks to give. And you know, when they're evicted, when they're thrown out of there, whatever the place may be, in many cases, they go to big shelters. And if you talk about pandemic, this is a pandemic, and they go to shelters. Number one, they're thrown out viciously. It's not their fault, it's Gina's fault. It's not anybody's fault, it's Gina's fault. Yeah, that was the rest of that video clip that they cut out. So let's take a look. In the 80s, Trump Organization evicted a 74-year-old bedridden stroke victim from her Queens apartment, taking her belongings, such as her furniture and jewelry and dishes, and brought them to a dump. They said they came to put me on the street because I owed 4 months' rent. I don't owe back rent. The last thing I got from Trump was a bill for $10.20 about 2 weeks ago, and I paid it. They just want me out because they can get twice as much rent for this place. Let's see. Trump also forced tenants out of 100 Central Park South, which he wanted to revamp. Trump brought specious lawsuits against some of them, and judges have thrown these out, charging him with bad faith, harassment, and intimidation. In one case, ordering young Donald to pay the tenants' legal fees. In the early 2000s, Trump tried to evict tenants from a hotel he purchased on Park Avenue in New York so he could renovate it. According to the New York Times, he, quote, sought to evict 3 of the 17 remaining tenants. Donald Trump, not China, allowed coronavirus to wreck our country by mismanaging the response. Trump's history of brutal evictions and his White House's refusal to seriously negotiate on a coronavirus relief package proves how little he cares about the millions of unemployed Americans and whether they have a roof over their head. As many as 28 million people may be kicked out of their homes if the current eviction moratorium is not extended. But don't worry, now that he's down in the polls and there's something easy he can do, signing his name on a piece of paper, it's Donald Trump's favorite thing to do. There is literally nothing that Donald Trump loves more than signing a big-ass piece of paper in front of a camera. He loves it. He's like, look, Mom, I know my own signature. I can write. Yay! Literally his favorite thing to do. So I'm sure the longer the House shits the bed and doesn't come to a resolution on this, I am sure Donald Trump will eventually sign some kind of a moratorium. Just keep in mind that moratorium only deals with a very specific subset of people throughout the country, and it has absolutely no teeth when you deal with the reciprocity. But expect Donald Trump to milk this for all it's worth, because he's still losing to Joe Biden.